Good evening. Welcome to the Skokie 68 Board of Education regular meeting of December 19th, 2024. Can we get a roll call, please?
Bell Jordan.
Here.
Hyatt. Lonegro.
Here.
Ruffner.
Here.
Sturbins.
Here.
Sullivan. Borshon.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now open our meeting for public comment. Do we have any registered?
No, we do.
Okay, nothing online. Do we have any public comment from the crowd? Seeing none, we will move right on to our superintendent's reports.
Very exciting tonight. I am here to tell you about the launch of our communication and engagement learning team. Thank you for the thunderous applause. We had some really great feedback in the superintendent entry plan transition process. Lots of celebrations, lots of praise across all 5 focus areas of our strategic plan. The one that rose to the top as the most opportune for us with continuous improvements was around our communication and our engagement, not just outside of the district, but also inside the district. So we have a learning team that will be developing soon after this break. Not a new concept here in Skokie 68. We've done these before in a number of different areas as it relates to the strategic plan. But what's exciting is it will have real direct focus, specifically on website redevelopment as well as a communication platform. We already have communication platforms in the district, and this will be a chance for us to hone in and develop a couple of criteria for both of those topics to come out with products that really can be focused on exactly that, communication and engagement with our community. So things like translatability, access, updates, awareness of events, those are all topics and focus areas that would show up as this team reviews the different options that may exist out there. Multiple stakeholders will be involved. We'll have opportunities for teachers, administrators. I've already had some board member interest, which is awesome, super appreciative of that, as well as parents, school office staff. So we want to make sure that those that are involved and impacted by our communication are involved in the beginning too. So more to come on that, really exciting. My other update for you is on the important dates. I think winter break starts. Is that after tomorrow? Okay, just checking. So that is right around the corner. We do resume school on January 6th, and we have January 16th as the next board meeting. Just as awareness and a heads up, January 20th is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. That is a day of no attendance for students and staff. Those are my updates. I'll pause before I take any introductions in case there are any questions about the communication and engagement learning team, anything related to that exciting opportunity.
That we're doing it. Get back to that model. It's an
Awesome.
very good model.
Great. Thank you. All right. Without further ado, our next item on here is the Kids Summit highlights. So Dr. Samajedny recently attended a summit. She's going to share a little bit about that and talk about PBL, which is definitely one of the more exciting topics. Hand it over to you.
Yes, thank you. So recently I had the pleasure of presenting at the Kids Summit conference in Bloomington with 2 teachers from Stinson, Amy Anderson, MTSS specialist, and Sylvia Lanuski, kindergarten teacher. And we really were telling the story of how we launched play-based learning in the district this year. So this presentation is just kind of the highlights of what we presented there. So I'll get into it for you. So this presentation aligns with social emotional learning, the whole child, teaching and learning. Also touches aspects of the cultural responsiveness, equity, and inclusion. And actually also a little bit of facilities and safety because of some of the equipment and furniture that we purchased as part of phase 1 of the Learning Spaces initiative. So in the presentation, you're going to hear a little bit about just an overview of play-based learning, why we launched PBL. We're going to look at a little bit of kids data that kind of help drive some of the decision making. Our planning considerations, things that we had to take into account as we launched this last spring. The Kids Summit presentation, our implementation noticings, and then next steps. So what is play-based learning? It really is just a developmentally appropriate approach that focuses on using play as an instructional tool. It can be used in many different settings, a one-on-one setting, small group, whole class. But again, it is a tool that is used that we categorize into two places. We think of PBL as guided play and student-initiated play, and we implement both of those in our classrooms. And all the pictures that you see are of our kiddos at the 3 elementaries. So why play-based learning? It really supports our mission of developing children that are confident and creative. It aligns with our rigorous curriculum. It creates a supportive school environment, encourages that personal growth, and helps our kids meet their unique needs. It is gaining momentum around Illinois specifically, but in other states across the country, PBL really is a growing trend because research is showing how beneficial it is for students. It develops that social emotional awareness, that awareness of others, how to do school, how to be collaborative, and how to integrate content areas into play, which kids don't know that that's happening, but it is, which is fun. It's also a way to just help our students learn developmentally and in engaging ways, and again, it aligned to our Learning Spaces initiative. So thinking about the KIDS assessment. So KIDS stands for Kindergarten Individual Developmental Survey. It is not an assessment, although we couch it in our assessment calendar and terms. We use that, but it really is just a survey. It's an observational survey that our teachers use to measure students' readiness for kindergarten. The KIDS survey was initiated by ISB a number of years ago, and has kind of been slow to gain traction with districts in terms of using the data. They don't make the data super easy to gather unless you are a trained implementer of the KIDS survey. So for example, I do not have access to the data unless I take the training that a kindergarten teacher does. And it's about a 6 to 8 hour training. I have to pass the assessment, and then they will give me access. Principals, same thing. So they don't make it super friendly for you to use data for a year, and then they will release that data. Our teachers are trained. All kindergarten teachers are trained in collecting the data. Again, it's about 6 hours of training. They observe, they collect evidence within the first 40 days of school. That is dictated by the state. And they're looking at collecting evidence across 14 different measures. They enter the data into the KIDS portal. That data is calculated and it's reported out in 3 main areas, which you'll see in a couple of slides. That data is meant to inform teachers and schools how to support students' growth over time. So teachers have immediate access to their data, and they can see for each of the kids developmentally how they've walked in the door to them. And then they're able to use that data to inform specific areas that maybe some students need strengthening. So they are maybe not developmentally at kindergarten level in this particular area, so these are the kinds of things that I can work on. And PBL is a perfect mechanism for that to happen. So these are the domains for the KIDS survey. There are 3 main ones that are used within the 14 measures. The approaches to learning and self-regulation, called the ATL reg. Social and emotional development, those are categorized together. So we get 1 score that puts those 2 different domains together. The second domain that's reported out is language and literacy, and then the third is around cognition and math. And you can see the sorts of things that the 14 measures are looking at within each of those domains. So Kids also offers additional domains and additional measures that school districts can choose to implement. And we are investigating whether or not we want to expand our use of the Kids survey in order to learn more about our students and perhaps to replace some of our district assessments with the Kids survey and gathering data in a different way that's really more central to our specific students. So there are some additional domains like the physical development domain that adds a whole lot more other measures to it. And then there are even more beyond that. So there is an English language development for dual language learners. There is a language and literacy development in Spanish. There's a cognition in science, physical development again, health, history, social studies, visual performing arts. That's the whole package together. I would say that probably not very many districts choose to implement all of those because it's quite a lot. But again, there's a lot out there to gather information on kids, through kids. This is just a snapshot of the developmental rubric that teachers are using when they're gathering those artifacts and they are making the observations of students. So you can get a little bit of a picture. Students will either fall into the developmental level of building skills, and then that will be further drilled down into they're in the earlier stages of building, they're in the middle stages, they're in the later stages, versus they are fully integrating those skills, and again, they're in the earlier stage, the middle stage, and the later stage. And then all of the points below kind of give you an idea of the kinds of tasks and the kinds of things that students would be doing that would match those different levels within the rubric. It's quite complex. Huge kudos to our kindergarten teachers who are putting all of this together for each of their students in the first 40 days of school where they're trying to get kids to learn how to be in school. This is a snapshot of our kids survey data from 2019. So this was fall before COVID and fall of 2023. And you can see again the three main areas. 2019 scores are at the top. You can see the percentage of students who are demonstrating kindergarten readiness come from the district in the light blue compared to the state in the darker blue. And you can see where we were in 2019 before COVID and where we are now. So we have seen this and felt this in our students as they're coming into kindergarten. They have a lot of needs coming in. And so this just reiterated for us the reason why we really needed to implement play-based learning and think about how are we helping develop all of these skills in our students beyond just the math lesson, the literacy lesson, the social studies lesson, et cetera, et cetera. So the kinds of things that we had to think about as we were planning, we started back in March and April of last year. We consulted with the kids team from ISB. They came in and partnered with us to help us think about what we needed to think about, what kind of professional development we needed to put in place. Really just kind of all the things that districts who have already implemented PBL, what have they done and how were they successful and what are the things that we need to consider. So we looked at resources, we looked at research, we pulled kindergarten teachers together and we developed a vision for what PBL would look like in our district. Then in May and June, we started with the first of 3 play series PDs with the kids team. We had some summer planning with kindergarten teachers where we created our PBL handbook. We identified the equipment and the materials that we wanted to have in each classroom. Then in August, we had some additional play-based learning. That one was really fun. They brought in all sorts of blocks, more variety of blocks than you could imagine. And they had the teachers play with the blocks, with some structured play. Mr. Ritz was there. It was quite fun to watch. The adults playing with these blocks and then getting them to think about what could you do with your students and what kind of questions could you ask and how could you tie this activity with these blocks to literacy. How could you tie this activity with those blocks to math? And really kind of thinking about not just having kids play with blocks, but really how to integrate it with content. So that was in August. In September, we had some kids collaboration looking at data, thinking about how to have inter-rater reliability with the kids assessment, the kids survey, not the assessment. And then just thinking about different observation techniques and data collection tools that could be used as they were continuing and beginning to wrap up the first 40 days of observation. And then we will follow this up in April with a final play series and just a reflection of how the year has gone, what we need to think about for year 2. And then while all of that has been happening, each of the buildings has conducted some book studies with their instructional support team and their principal. The gift of playful learning and purposeful play to really think about how to be intentional in PBL in their classroom and just kind of broaden their understanding and depth of understanding in PBL as professionals. So one of the things that we had to think about for PBL was how to fit it into the day and where it would fit. And so we looked at our instructional time allocations. We made some adjustments to a few of the content areas because we knew that we would be able to hit those content areas within our PBL. So the teachers did not feel like they were giving away some math time or giving away some writing time because they would be able to encapsulate that into PBL. Our PBL handbook, we wanted to make sure that any principal who walked in new to a building would be able to look at the handbook and understand what PBL was all about. We wanted any new teacher who walked into kindergarten to be able to look at the handbook and understand what it was all about. And we also wanted to make sure that we had common definitions, common understandings about what PBL would look like, what it would sound like, what teachers would be doing, what students would be doing, how to communicate with parents, how parents could support PBL at home. All of those pieces are part of the handbook that was created. So then we had to think about what equipment and materials we wanted. So we came up with a list of materials. This is not completely inclusive of everything that every classroom would have. You can see those under the classroom-based section of the screen. So an art easel, blocks in a block cart, a dress-up station, a new kitchen, Lego building table, morning buckets that have small little manipulatives in it that kids can to use to do different things. And then on the school-based side, we purchased a market stand, a puppet theater, and a science table for each building. And those 3 items rotate once a trimester through the 3 teachers at each building, so kids get different experiences. And all of that we funded through Title I. So what are teachers and kids saying? Teachers are loving it. They're seeing kids building off of each other's conversations and ideas in a really organic manner. Kids are learning how to play with one another and problem solve in an unstructured environment. And that play is really intentional on the kids' part, but also on the teacher's part. And the kids are like, I like it. I get to play with toys, get to play with friends. And then another student said, get to play with new friends. And we get to play with all kinds of different toys. So they are both enjoying it. So what we're noticing, there's a whole list there of celebrations. I won't read through them all, but we have seen behavioral decreases. We've seen students really developing and building on their SEL skills. We're seeing them engaged more in academics throughout the day because they've had sort of that release, right? Considerations, time. We always want more time, need more time. Some of our students don't really know how to play. So that has been something that teachers have noticed, that they have to help them learn how to play. keeping up with consumable materials, like planning for that in the budget, like I did not know or realize how quickly we would go through Play-Doh, right? Yes. And just maintaining, the knowledge and understanding that it's a work in progress. So again, as we meet in the spring, we will calibrate on all of these things and think about what we need to think about for next year. This is just a picture of us at the kids' presentation. We had 100 people in the audience. Doesn't look like 100, but it was because I counted all the seats. But it was a lot of fun. We've already had 2 or 3 districts reach out to us to learn more about PBL. One has already come to see PBL in action in our classroom. So it was fun to be able to inspire others and the good work that is being done here. Any questions for me? Yeah.
The data chart, I know it's boring to go back to the data because this is so much fun, but that was, you said it was fall 2023. Was that like a benchmark of where things were, and then do you have fall 2023 this?
I don't have this yet because I haven't passed the test.
Oh, okay. Oh, you haven't passed the test.
They don't
Right,
release
right.
the current year until,
Okay, cool.
even though the data's there, they don't release it. Yeah.
Well, it'd be cool to see what happens over time.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Exciting.
I would probably use this year as a benchmark.
Yeah.
For PBL.
Yeah.
And the next year, yeah. But again, it's how the kids are coming in their first 40 days.
They were all born in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Do we have an idea what the rest of the state is doing, that their numbers in some cases actually increased over that time?
No, I don't know. Again, it's an aggregate of
Right,
the whole state, so it could be a number of,
I know, it's
Yeah.
not the most helpful data
Yeah.
from that point of view.
yeah,
Just a question,
Yeah.
when did we start using PBL, did you say last
this
year?
school year, in
This
August,
school year,
yes.
in August, okay.
Yeah, so it's a brand new
been-
initiative.
So it's more towards the end of the day, right?
It is towards the end of the day.
Right?
I believe.
Except for
It's
Monday.
Except for
Afternoon
Monday.
to-
Monday's are really
I have a different kind of question.
Okay.
So in the summit, which is what, you went to be fed,
Yes.
administratively, I was thinking about the notion of the definition of play and our children today's understanding and experience with play being not necessarily maybe what we would expect. And you indicated that, a lot of the teachers realize that a lot of children don't know how to play. Of course, I'm not going to even try to get into the myriad reasons why that might be.
Right.
But I wondered, as you engaged in the summit and then when you put together the plan for PBL here in our district, to what extent did you take that into account in thinking about our children's experience or lack thereof with play as you built out the specific activities? Because some of them might have to be learned activities as opposed to immediately gratifying ones because of the need to, maybe backfill for students. And I just wonder how much intentionally was that part of what you picked as activities, or was that just a context that you all kept in mind as you were building this out?
We really picked the brain of the ISB kids coaches who have seen successful implementation and kind of relied on their expertise to point us in the direction of the types of activities and the types of play that we would want our students to experience, knowing that for some of the activities, kids will be able to walk, like the kitchen. They're gonna be able to walk in and they know how to begin cooking or serving food for the most part. But another type of activity, like maybe the puppet show, they don't necessarily have familiarity with that. And so the teacher introduces stations and they talk about the kinds of activities and what that might look like. So the teacher is able to kind of help that. And remember, the teacher is also moving around during this playtime and she's conferring with students or he's conferring with students and they're talking about, what do you think you could build with that? And just asking those guiding, prompting questions, especially as they see a student who might not, what am I supposed to do here? And just helping build that, capacity to understand what to do within certain stations.
Well, it is addressing a different kind of need when you think about the whole child beyond the pedagogy of it. And I'm just
Yes.
thinking about whether you all felt extra burdened to make play relevant and reintroduce play in that way to children who might, not have that much experience with it for whatever reason.
Yes, and I think, this year, when we get together in the spring at our April Institute and sort of debrief, I think those sorts of conversations we'll be having. Maybe we'll realize that we hit it on the head with what we chose, and maybe we'll realize that there were some places that we had some missed opportunities. I think just thinking about how did the kids react, how did they respond, how did they move through the different stations, what do we need to think about for next year, do we need to front load more, all those kinds of conversations are ones that we'll have in the spring.
Well, thank you. This is really big to me that, we're thinking about our children and play with the intentionality that you all put into this. So thank you for that.
I think it really does give them a chance to talk to each other and interact. I think that's the main point. And another thing I like is that they get to, I think the teachers get to take more notes, observations of how kids are interacting. I mean, that's vital. That's data that we need. So that way you can kind of like, oh, okay, for the next following grade, how can we help them? Where are they lacking or so forth.
Right.
That makes sense.
The only thing I would add, when I look at this data and I think about the state, I get excited about our early childhood center
Yeah.
and thinking about getting ahead of this. We've had an increase in enrollment over the last year. I know during the pandemic, the state took a major hit in terms of early childhood enrollment. I think it went down almost 20%, 16, 15%. And the state has since increased funding in the millions, 50 million for the early childhood block grant. We've done a lot of investment, obviously with the space with early childhood. So I think, how can we get ahead of this? I mean, that's one way, and that's going to be a very playful space, that's for sure. So we're already thinking intentionally, how can we, increase and get ahead of this? Because I think Chrissy did a good job articulating that this data is almost upon arrival. So it's not, in some cases we look at student assessment data and we say, what was our role in that? In some cases here, a lot of this was, environmental or pandemic driven, in some cases from hypothesis, but I think the Early Childhood Center is a great next step to continue to monitor this also. So another benchmark item for us to be thinking about.
Thank you.
I just have one more small thing, I'm sorry. So that I'm making sure I understand it. Like this, we're not gonna is there an assessment, a kids survey assessment that's done at the end of the PBL? With the intentionality of PBL being to be, okay, our learners aren't quite as prepared for kindergarten when they come in. This is a way to engage them in all those things. How are we assessing that at the?
So when I talked about potentially using more of the domains or measures from the kids survey, we have the option to do that. We're required to do what we're doing right now, but we are having conversations about should we do more, should we do it multiple times so that we can see that growth.
Okay.
We haven't come to that decision yet.
And is there thought about having some aspect of PBL move beyond kindergarten? Or is it just staying at kindergarten?
Right now, we're gonna get really good at kindergarten.
Excellent.
Um,
I was just curious about how the administration is thinking about that, or if there are PBL programs that go into subsequent.
There are that go into like K2, the primary grades. I think right now got some first grade teachers in the room going, I don't know, they're either excited or they're not. I think we just want to get really good at kindergarten and make sure that we understand how to do that well, and then have conversations about maybe any potential growth.
Yeah, that's a good idea because them getting out there, like even having drama class and then interacting and acting, like a song or so forth, or that'd be nice to see.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Or a wax museum? So the play isn't over yet. We are going to transition. We do have as our next item a little bit more of a visualization opportunity for you with this. Principal Ritz is here with some team members from Devonshire to give us a glance into the classroom.
So this presentation, I think, will be a nice segue into like what it looks like with kids, the people, not the assessment. Kids, the children. Thank you. We are really excited to share what this has turned into in the first, 3-4 months of school at Devonshire. It certainly was something new to me, was something new to teachers, somewhat because they had just got through that training. I did get to play with the blocks, but I was really excited to get into this work, and I knew I had a great team behind me, and we'll all share kind of what this looked like inside of our classrooms. As Dr. Samajeni said, I think the two main parts of the strategic plan this hits is the SEL and the whole child in teaching and learning, but as Dr. Samajeni alluded to, you will see furniture, you will see the toys, the props, the kitchens come to life, hopefully, in this presentation, so it's really exciting for us to share. One of the pieces of the playbook that Dr. Samajeni alluded to was this idea of like the continuum, and really what we focus on is that yellow bubble in the middle, so in between a classroom rich in child-initiated play and a playful classroom with focused learning. So I'm imagining like a ping pong match of this going on, and the ball doesn't go off the table very often, but we get it in the middle there. And the handbook was very, very helpful for me as a first-year principal at Devonshire to really understand what this looked like. Just to kind of drive this home, the data, this is Devonshire's data. Again, all the same 3 measures from the kids' assessment about kindergarten readiness, from the social emotional math literacy. You can see what 5 years in the pandemic has done, but we are excited to continue thinking about this and looking at this kids' data as we go forward. A quote that stuck with me as I thought about play is learning through play is about continuity, bringing together children's spheres of life, homeschool, and the wider world, in doing so over time. So I think that over time piece is really something that Dr. Samajeni alluded to in terms of really getting to know what this looks like as we learn with the kids and how to initiate this best with them. I'm going to invite our fabulous kindergarten team up here. I won't read the quotes to you, but they put these together, and really the rest of the show is going to be about them and what this looks like in their classrooms. You can?
I'm Beth Shyatt. I'm one of the kindergarten teachers here at Devonshire. Well, I guess they're at Devonshire School. Play provides us with opportunities for problem solving, building imagination, and strengthening creativity. It gives students a safe place to discover connections between the real world and the abstract world. Hands-on play gives students the practical experience to apply their learning and to learn from correcting and challenging their mistakes.
Hello, I'm Angela Schroeder, kindergarten teacher at Devonshire. So really, the things that we're working on are their life skills, the most important life skills. So it's about being a good person, a good friend, a good classmate, working productively together, and also like managing their needs and emotions all day long. So that's kind of why it's so important for us.
Hi, I'm Judy Solway. I'm also a kindergarten teacher at Devonshire. Play-based learning allows students to practice sharing, taking turns, and cooperating in a comfortable environment. PBL also provides students the opportunity to create their own structure and connect with classmates they may not interact with during other class activities. What I want to say is the things that were chosen, it's like the kids do not really just go for their friends, they go for the activity, and then they're with kids that they may have not played with before.
Okay, I guess it's show and tell time. We're going to be talking about how we've connected play into our social studies unit and why play is important, the power of play in kindergarten. My part of it is kind of how it's told through the children's eyes. We don't only get the chance to interact with the kids during playtime and play with them and show them how to play and demonstrate and ask them questions and bring in content, but we also talk about the importance of it and why we have it. I have a couple pictures and a couple videos. Can you click on that one? So one of our friends said play helps us calm down. Unprompted, we asked all the kids why play was important and why play helps us. Play helps our bodies calm down. Sometimes it's reading, sometimes it's snuggling in the quiet corner or dressing up, sometimes it's just sitting coloring, sometimes it's doing a math activity. My kids particularly love to take out our workplaces during playtime, so it really gives us an opportunity to bring that math into it and also bring our toys into it. They'll play school with our stuffies, and so they'll bring the activities and teach them how to do that.
And work places are the game-based pieces of our math curriculum. So kind of getting to that point of like, play doesn't disappear in primary, it just kind of looks a little different as you go throughout the years.
Thanks, sorry.
Play is important because it helps your brain grow.
Play helps our brain grow. So that's pretty self-explanatory. All the quotes that the kids said I wrote because some of them are a little harder to understand, but you can see from some of the pictures there, when they're building, you can see in the bottom corner how proud they are of their pyramid. I think that took them probably 3 or 4 times. Every time I videoed, they'd start laughing though, and so I didn't include the video of it. But you can see how many times the building with the dominoes, the building with the plus blocks, even playing with the abacus. Play helps our brain grow.
Why is play important, Rihanna? Because it helps you know how to be respectful for your toy. And it helps you figure out what you can make.
So it teaches us to be respectful of our toys, helps us figure out what you can make. One of our friends was playing in our kitchen and they wanted to make a store and they said, I have nowhere to put my money. So I said, well, what can we do about that? Well, I can make something. What can you make? I can make a purse. How can you make a purse? Can I have paper? So we took out construction paper. Now what do you need? Can I have tape? So I gave her some tape. She put the money in, the money fell out. I said, okay, so now how can we figure out how to keep the money so it doesn't fall out? She said, well, I can tape the ends and leave one end open so I can get the money out. So it was a lot of problem solving, a lot of figuring out, a lot of creating along the way. These are just some more pictures for you guys to look at, to watch them in the creative process. You can kind of see on the far right them starting to create their pyramid over there. The middle picture, you can see her creating her purse. And on my left, you can see her following instructions. I was shocked. We left the instruction books in with some of our Magna-Tiles, with our marble races. They love following those directions. So again, that's also bringing content into play. They're learning how to read. They're following instructions. They're looking at the pictures. They're making those coordinations together. I think one more set of pictures for you guys to take a look at. And I think that's it for me. Yes. Oh, one last. Is there a video on that one? It's not. Play teaches us not to give up and to be a problem solver. And that's probably one of the most important things is our kids don't give up. They keep trying. When something doesn't work, they try again. If they get frustrated, how can we fix this? What can we do to make it better? And it's not just with our toys. It's when we're having an issue with a friend, when we're having an issue with a grown-up. They don't always like what we have to say. And sometimes we say, okay, how can we make this better? What can we do to fix it? So it really teaches us to be stronger, to be a problem solver, and to really think about things as we're doing them.
Okay, so we'll play the video in just a few minutes, but first I want to explain a little bit more about the social studies curriculum for trimester 1. The students come into school, and the first thing that we're learning about is our school community. So we're learning about how we navigate and work together in the classroom, how we navigate the entire building, all the different roles the people in the building play, and all the different materials that are there for us to use. And at the beginning of the unit, the students kind of came up with this list of all their questions that they wanted to solve. And their biggest question, well, not their biggest question, but one of many pressing questions was, Mrs. Schroeder, why do we have so many toys? So it was just kind of an interesting question the first few weeks when we came into school. And then, at the end of our social studies unit in the last few weeks, we circled back to all the questions that the students had at the beginning of the year, and we say, did we solve any of those questions? And I said, listen guys, we're gonna be talking about play, with the school board, and we need to tell them, why it's important to us. And I said, you asked this question at the beginning of the year, why do we have so many toys? I was like, do you still have that question? And then their hands all shot up, and here are some of their answers. Why do we have so many toys? So new friends can play, so we can learn to be kind, so we can learn to respect each other, because toys help us learn math and writing and about cooking, because kids like different things. They teach us to have fun, they teach us to share, they teach us turn taking, they teach us to love each other, and they teach us new things. And then one other student, his hand shot up and he said, I know the most important reason we have toys. And he said, because when new friends come in to our classroom, like friends that don't speak the same language, they can just walk in and play. So they kind of took all of the lessons for play, and that was kind of one that was most special to me because they really got it, they understand, and they wanted to kind of show you in action them, practicing all these important life skills through play. So we created this video for you.
We learn to be kind and respectful. We have friends and relax. Let's go. I want color. You can have some blue. You can also have some black. Thank you. Do you want color? I'll be patient. I'll be patient. I could teach you. Sometimes I need a break. This is relaxing. I can write fabrics. I can write numbers. I can make a fabric. Dad, do you want to do the tower? Yes, sir. That's a great idea.
So yes, it was scripted, but they came up with it. So that's just the kids showing you that they get it and there is value in it for them.
Amazing.
Okay, so in our class, we also, through social studies, we were trying to see how to solve problems, and we picked during playtime. So when I am involved with the kids and I'm doing, like an activity, everyone's coming up to me. He has this, I can't use it, we want the Legos, but they want the Legos. So it's a constant where I can't even focus on the group I'm with. So we decided to make a list, because we've been talking about so much about problem solving, that during play, and we talked about a lot of things like sharing, ask if we can join them, things like that, play together, taking turns, just, maybe stopping and just thinking, I need a break from this. So we put this up and they took little Post-its, and after play, not everybody, because sometimes they got along and it was great, but sometimes they thought, and they even made their own, like if there's only one thing to use, like a cash register, we'll just put a timer. So they drew some of their own ideas, taking Legos, but then also the wooden blocks and putting those together so more can play and use different type of blocks to build. So they would come up after if they felt that they had solved a problem, put their name and put a Post-it to where, what was so cute is like when they played with a new friend or something and you'd hear them talking to someone they never played with, and then they'd put it here, they had fun with a new friend today, or, you know, they asked somebody if they could join them, so they would put their names up like this. And then we joined with Mr. Black's classroom, it's a special ed class, and so as a group, they made a book, How Do We Solve Problems During Play? So each of the kids had one of the pictures that they decided to work on, and they just all threw, like, one of them said, I will share markers. So they drew that, and they figured they would do this so that they could share with you and you of how to play and solve problems when they are having an issue. So it was very cute. But also, aside from social studies, we've been using the read-alouds, interactive read-alouds, and we've been looking so much at illustrations on the covers. And I've been looking up with them how they created these illustrations, and a few of them, like they paint with the wonderful amount of watercolors that you sent over. And during that time, we have one table. We've used tissue paper and like all the different ways that they illustrate in their books, and then they create their own illustrations. So it's just been, I love it because they play with kids that they normally wouldn't play with. They don't always get an opportunity to play with kids after school, and they get that opportunity in school. So it's been great. It's been good.
So we'll wrap it up here. A few more photos in terms of, working down the hall from Dr. Samajeni and thinking about all sorts of different standards in life, and coming from different educational experiences. I'm just tickled to see, kids kind of get into what we might later on in education call college and career readiness. They're thinking about their cooking here. We have future engineers. Again, I was impressed by how well they use the manuals. Like, I just did not think that was going to be something they pull out, but almost every time I go into a play-based learning session, I see them with the manuals. It's wonderful. On the left here, you see a measurement and data standard really coming to life. They wanted to know how long they were in blocks, apparently. We have someone who's being very safe with their juice bar. We have future business people. So there's some early numeracy going on here. You can see that they have prices of the McDonald's. We have future doctors on the right. And then, even sometimes the principal finds time to have some fun with blocks on a stressful day. We were actually making a drive-through for that. There's a McDonald's in this class too. We were making a drive-through to the McDonald's, but the permits fell through, and we had some disagreements with design. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be in your classes. Always, it's wonderful to work with the kids. And it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Really quick. First, thank you, Miss Sully, for including that cute video of my child. Second, and also I just want to say, seeing the intentionality around this. There are games that Adira now plays that she didn't before that are very intentional. Like if she plays Classroom, she sets up the entire space. So it's cool to see that that's why. But since they are getting to interact with kids that they don't normally get to, have you been able to use these as restorative spaces for when kids get, into issues with each other on the playground, and oftentimes those who are overlooking on the playground can't handle it or whatever, or the kid doesn't say anything until they get back to the classroom? Do you intentionally put those kids together or try to get them in the same space to move through the issue?
I guess I would say that it kind of depends. I mean, our play in the classroom, it's unstructured, but it's still very structured in the sense that the children understand the expectations for playing in the classroom. So while we don't necessarily, I know your question wasn't about if we have those issues in the classroom, but sometimes it is the appropriate place to put kids together or have them get more comfortable with each other if they are having issues in less structured areas or at recess. But I do feel yes, we can always suggest, we can always work with them. I mean, it's a great time for teachers to go and have the time, to talk to kids who need it and to model, the language is a huge piece of it. How we talk to each other, how we respectfully disagree or, problem solve. So I think it's it's the best opportunity we have for that, like to figure out or to work on the problems that are happening outside of the classroom, if that
It's
makes sense.
incredibly helpful with like a recess issue where you're talking to them about taking turns on the slide, and they already know how to do that because they've done that in class. And to your point, when there is an issue that arises, I feel like even from the beginning of the year, because they've grown, but also because of play-based learning, that they are more empathetic. They can see that another side of the story because they have these opportunities in class.
Awesome, thank you.
Can I piggyback off of Angela for a second to help answer your question? I think that those situations happen organically. I think that may directly answer your question, that we can, like Angela said, always place them into situations if we want to, but like there was an issue at recess with a few of my kids yesterday, and today they just organically went to an area and started playing together as if nothing had happened. And I think it just happens naturally because of the way they've been guided and modeled how to play, that it's the way the dynamic of the classrooms work and the way play-based learning works that teaches them to be problem solvers and to really just move past it and to explore the equipment that they have, the tools.
And if some of them, like if they all, like whether they're having arguments in the playground, but when they're together and they all want to use watercolors, they see that they can get along, in an activity, so hopefully that goes over, transfers to the playground.
Thank you. Oh, and one more thing. It definitely, Adira has told me, like, today I played with blank, not a normal friend. She's like, and now we're best friends. So it's working.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Devonshire crew. Excellent job. I did have one more announcement I forgot to mention earlier, which I apologize for. Tuesday night was our 4th and 5th grade orchestra night. We had a wonderful performance from our students, very poised, very articulate, introducing the songs. They were, or performances, I shouldn't say songs. They were incredibly excited to be able to perform. Our instructors did an excellent job. Even educating the audience a little bit, things like the swelling of instruments due to the weather, which was always interesting for the audience to kind of tune into. And we had a packed house. It was at Old Orchard, which is always, I think, a neat opportunity for our tip of the elementary to start to have a little bit of exposure to the junior high. So apologize, I failed to mention that earlier, but they sounded great. It was a wonderful performance.
Thank you. That concludes our superintendent's reports. Next item of business is the acceptance of minutes. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from the November 21st, 2024 Board of Education regular meeting.
Second.
Very good.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Lonegro.
Yes.
Bruckner.
Yes.
Sturban.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Thank you. The consent agenda is our next item of business. The consent agenda includes the personnel report covering employee hire and resignation is posted with the agenda for this meeting. Financial reports, which includes fund balances for November 24, and the statement of position report. Pay orders and expenditures, which includes accounts payable, statement of cash flow, and the P-card monthly report. Non-public facility placement into Easter seals. Board of Education policy second readings. Does any board member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? And may I have a motion and a roll call vote to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented by board president.
Second.
Lonegro.
Yes.
Bruckner.
Yes.
Sturban.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Thank you. We move on to our reports and discussion items, beginning with our Ed Red report. Mr. Sturman.
Short and sweet. It was a joint meeting between EdRed and Northwest School Business Officers Association. A lot of focus on recent, not this session, but the last several sessions, changes in some of the laws related to school finance. I was definitely in the deep end for parts of it, but I understood most of it. One of the things that I thoroughly enjoyed, though, is they were talking about different bills, and then I could go back and look to see the language of them. And one of the quirks in Illinois legislation making is bills get introduced under one topic and then kind of get carved out, and the actual language is put in. And so one of the laws that we discussed, which was about notice requirements if you wanna change money from one school fund to another. The title of the bill was about hot tubs and campgrounds. So clearly, it was very easy to follow why one would lead to the other. So that was the highlight of my after meeting reading. We talked about veto session, which as expected had very little of big substance educationally. There's a possibility that there'll be what's called a lame duck session in the new year. Again, it is not expected by the folks that I've read that will have significant impacts on what we do, but we'll find out.
Thank you very much. Moving on to our ISB Resolutions Committee report, Ms. Warshaw.
So as we talked about last time, we all were pretty much in agreement with what the board had put out as their recommendations. The 6 resolutions that were approved, just so everyone's on the same page, a measure that would support the Illinois State Seal of Biliteracy as attainment of world language requirements passed. One district did try to make that not happen, but they got a very underwhelming amount of votes to continue the conversation. A resolution that would support applying the standards of evidence-based funding formula to state authorized charter schools passed. A measure that would advocate for TIF process reforms passed. That one seemed to also be quite a hot button issue. A proposal to support creation of statewide database for employment history review, requirement of Fate's Law passed. A resolution that would support the option of a unified health plan for school districts to participate in through the Illinois Department of Central Management Services passed. An amendment to an existing position statement on election day school closures that school districts should not be mandated to close on election day if none of the buildings used by the students within the district serve as polling places passed. That one was also quite contentious, but everybody, overwhelmingly the majority, so these are what will be advocated for in the next session. The ones, again, that were not considered got nowhere. And they did some very bureaucratic changes of wording in the parliamentary procedure. And that is all.
That was the constitutional amendment that we didn't really have an opinion on.
Yeah.
Thank
That
you
we didn't know
very
that was happening, yeah.
much. Surprise! All right, we move on to our first readings of Board of Education policies. I'll read through the list of these. If anyone would like to discuss any in detail, we will pause at that one. The first is 510, Equal Employment Opportunity and Minority Recruitment. Any need for discussion? Number 2 is 520, Workplace Harassment Prohibited. Number 3, 530, Hiring Process and Criteria. Number 4, 535, Compliance with the Fair Labor Standards Act. Number 5, 590, Abused and Neglected Child Reporting. Number 6, 5120, Employee Ethics, Code of Professional Conduct and Conflict of Interest. And number 7, 5125, Personal Technology and Social Media Usage and Conduct. Great, those will all move to second reading at our next meeting, and we get to our action items. Our next item of business is the approval of the construction bid for Highland Elementary in the amount of $8,103,074. May I have a motion?
Move to approve the construction bid for Highland Elementary in the amount of $8,103,074 as presented.
Very exciting. We have amazing facilities here in Skokie 68 and the work continues. Highland already had significant work conducted outside with the new playground, which looks amazing, the back area of the school. They are up next in terms of some of the inside refreshing, and I'm going to hand it over to Kenya to give a bit more detail about what that may entail.
So we had a bid opening on December 4th at 2 o'clock here at the district office. We had a pre-bid meeting on November 14th at 7:30 a.m. We had a good turnout. There was a lot of people here. So for the general trade, we had 4 bidders for the general trade, and Ledestro won that as the lowest responsible bidder. And Ledestro is also the same general trade that did Devonshire. And then they had an alternate for, base cabinets with sinks and, wall mounted upper cabinets for $2,500 included in that. And then the HVAC was where we had a lot of bids. We had 8 bidders for the HVAC system, and we had actually 2 tied bids with the exact same amount. Never happened before.
Wow.
You open bids, you never get them to be the exact same. So everybody kind of like got nervous. What if that was the lowest bidder? Who are you gonna pick? So they end up not being the lowest bidder, but it was very close. It was very close competition in the HVAC category. And then with electrical, we had 4 bidders, and McWilliams won that bid for this project this year. So the total bid, as the president stated, base bid was $8,103,074, but that also did not include all the construction fees, contingencies. That would get the final bid up to that number. But the base bid was $6.6 million. So that could change if we don't use all the contingency and other things.
We discussed how, just the HVAC piece having so many bidders and the geothermal element and how potentially contractors want, additional pieces of that work and their profile and their portfolio. So just wanted to highlight that we're still gonna be implementing that and, similar to other schools that have had it before, similar to Devonshire last year. So exciting work. It's really great to have Dr. Bradley give input as well. So the aesthetics have been taken into consideration, excuse me. And we've been able to pivot on a couple of items as well that, really I think are gonna give a consistent feel across the different schools across the district. So exciting work. It's gonna look great when it's done.
How do I get tickets to a bid opening, and are they always at 7:30 in the morning? No. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturbins,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw,
Yes.
Bell Jordan,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Lonegro.
Yes.
Thank you. Our next item of business is authorizing the tax levy for the year 2024. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the tax levy for 2024 as follows. Be it resolved by the Board of Education of School District Number 68, Cook County, Illinois, adopt a tax levy resolution as follows. The sum of $21,975,442 for educational purposes, and the sum of $6,263,612 for operations and maintenance purposes, and the sum of $1,118,885 for transportation purposes, and the sum of $96,364 for working cash purposes, and the sum of $214,141 for Illinois municipal retirement purposes, and the sum of $535,351 for Social Security and Medicare purposes, and the sum of $111,621 for tort immunity purposes, and the sum of $2,435,849 for special education purposes, on the equalized assessed valuation of all the taxable property in School District 68, Cook County, Illinois, for the year 2024, and to include dated this 19th day of December 2024.
Second.
Well done, Marty.
Not on your report.
Thank you, Jeff. That's all. An owner as well. Is this Kenya?
What you have in the board packet is basically the certificate that we have to submit to the state, the resolution that we have to submit, and the resolution for reduction of any reductions we may have on any taxes that we have appeals on. We also have to do a resolution for that to state where we want those reductions to be. And then the truth in taxation, basically, we did not exceed the 5%, so we don't have to be hearing anything, but we still have to do certification. And then the certification for PTEL. And that would be it, and all of that will be submitted once we approve.
Great. questions?
Sturman,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw,
Yes.
Bell Jordan,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Lonegro,
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes. All right, moving on to our resolution of intent to issue working cash fund bonds. The next item is to adopt the resolution declaring the intent to issue working cash fund bonds for the purpose of increasing the district's working cash fund and to direct the publication of notice of such intention. May I have a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution declaring the intention to issue not to exceed $6,125,000 working cash fund bonds for the purpose of increasing the district's working cash fund and directing that notice of such intention be published in the manner provided by law.
Second.
Thank you. All right.
So I'll start us off, and Kenya may join in. So in October, we presented for you an overview of one of the many strengths of the district, which has been our healthy and strong fund balance. We want to make sure we're maintaining that. In November, we talked about some of the anticipated increased costs as it relates to our capital improvement projects. If you recall, we were looking at Highland potentially at around $10 million. It did come back, thankfully, much below that. But there are still several other increasing in costs that we need to be cognizant of. The Early Childhood Center project, roughly $16 million. We have life health safety items at $2 million and maybe even a little more than that. So we want to think about ways to plan ahead for this. We, as you recall, had Elizabeth Hennessy here from Raymond James who helped us think about opportunities for the working cash fund bonds. We looked at 3 options. Those options were definitely considered heavily. We looked back at the numbers on our side, and I'll highlight that this is not a new process for the district. We have issued working cash fund bonds since the early 1990s, and what's really impressive about Skokie 68 is that those have all been paid back in many cases in 3 to 5 years, which is completely different than many districts that oftentimes will take 15 to 20 years for that. So in looking at that, we're here to issue a resolution of intent with that. We have with us, if you have questions in a more detailed nature, we have Angeli from Chapman and Cutler. She's been patiently learning about project-based learning. But she's here to help us if you have questions about what the financial impact of this means. The option that we're presenting and recommending would include the utilization of $6.125 million as tax-exempt proceeds, and that does have a financial impact on the owner of a $400,000 market value home. I want to highlight what that impact would be for transparency. It would equal roughly $45.27 for the entire tax payment, which would be, if 2 installments, $22.64 per installment payment. So I just want to make sure that is absolutely clear and that the process is understood, and that tonight we're here to issue and approve the resolution of intent to go down this path. And we would then broadcast and announce a public hearing, which would take place at the next board meeting, January 16th. And then from there, we would approve the parameters on the bond resolution at the subsequent February meeting. So this is an announcement of this that then would be given an opportunity for feedback in January, and then final work in February. So I just want to make sure that was clear. If there's anything maybe I missed or misspoke on, Angeli, by all means, you won't be the first person who's corrected me in this room. Anything you want to add to that I may have glanced over?
No, that was a great summary, and if you have any further questions, I'm happy to take them.
What are your thoughts on play-based learning?
As a mom who has a child in preschool, I found it fascinating.
No, thank you for being here.
Other questions, comments?
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw,
Yes.
Bell Jordan,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Lonegro,
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturman.
Yes.
Thank you. Our next item of business to adopt the resolution directing the Niles Township School Treasurer to partially abate and permanently transfer $13 million from the working cash fund to capital projects as presented. May I have a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution directing the Niles Township School Treasurer to partially abate and permanently transfer $13 million from the working cash fund to the capital projects as presented.
Second.
Thank you.
I will hand this one to Kenya. This is more of an annual process, but one that was mentioned back in September when the budget was presented. So all yours.
As you remember, it is in the budget.
Yeah.
In August, it is in the budget, to move $13 million from the working cash fund to capital projects to pay for some of the project costs that we already have currently and to start paying for some of the costs of the EEC building that we're gonna be doing in the spring.
Thank you. Pretty straightforward. Any questions?
Warshaw,
Yes.
Bell Jordan,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Lonegro,
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturbins,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item of business is the approval of a 5-year agreement with Central State Bus Sales, Inc. to lease 4 new Blue Vision 72 passenger gasoline buses as presented. May I have a motion?
I move to approve a 5-year agreement with Central State Bus Sales Incorporated to lease 4 new Blue Vision 72 passenger gasoline buses as presented.
Second.
So we have, I'll be short, we have been investigating the transformation to more green-friendly buses, and we plan to continue to investigate that. And without further ado, I just want to make sure that part was mentioned, because it's not something that the district is forgetful of or not mindful of. But there are some financial implications as well as some technological items that need to be given a little more time. So anything else you want to add? Sorry, Katie. Good else.
So we had some buses that came off lease. So we usually renew those every 5 years. So we have the new ones that we're releasing. It is not increasing the capacity of buses we already have. It's just renewing and updating the old lease to a new lease for the coming 4 buses that we have. We are looking at and evaluating when we do enrollment that we may need some additional buses for ECC and special ed, but that will be forthcoming.
Everybody good? Thank you.
Bell Jordan,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Lonegro,
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturbins,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
Our next item of business is the approval of the Skokie 68 Extended Day Program Hourly Rate of Pay Memorandum Understanding. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the Skokie 68 Extended Day Program Hourly Rate of Pay Memorandum of Understanding between the Board and the District 68 Education Association as presented.
Second.
Dr. Samajeni and team members have been working on an opportunity to utilize Title I funds to provide an extended day program for our students. We do not have an existing rate of pay in our collective bargaining agreement for this. It would be $50 an hour. So we wanted to memorialize this in partnership with the Education Association. So it's a simple MOU just to state that we are going to utilize Title I funds to provide that compensation for the program. It's sort of the first of its kind. We're definitely assessing how it will progress and excited to see what the learning outcomes are.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is this with the mindset of when we talked about how at Old Orchard the programming was going away and that they were figuring out how to bring programming back in? Does this fall under that?
Does not. It's a good question. Doesn't mean it wouldn't occur in a similar time frame, but different focus. This is more of an, and stop me where I need to, she's been trying to. This is more of an academic target versus an SEL component.
Yeah, we'd be targeting literacy and math for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, looking to take kids to the next performance level. So a little bit of students on grade level, pushing them a little bit below grade level, pushing them on grade level, the students on grade level, pushing them beyond grade level.
Okay.
Again, in literacy and math pilot program this year for Old Orchard only. We'll run the session for about 8 weeks with, we think about 5 teachers.
When would we evaluate it and consider extending it?
I'm sorry?
When would we evaluate it and see if it's,
I think at the end of the 8 weeks, we wanna make sure that teachers are, this is a lot to ask, cause 3 days after school for an hour on top of teaching responsibilities, so just getting a feel from teachers and from students about how the program went. And then it's always, grant dependent on, if we receive, this is coming from additional allocations that we
Right.
receive for title. So the efficacy of the program coupled with grant funding.
The only thing I'll add is if you remember, we moved the iReady presentation on, from the fall to the spring. So that'll occur in June, so we'll be able to see growth of the students from fall to spring. So that can be an interesting item for us to look at more in June, as it relates to targeted programming.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Vonnegut,
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes.
Disturbance,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw,
Yes.
Waltrip.
I believe we're on G, let me know, my eyes got a little blurry there. The next item of business is the adoption of a resolution accepting and approving exemption from the Cook County paid leave ordinance. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the resolution accepting and approving exemption from the Cook County paid leave ordinance as presented by the superintendent.
So the Paid Leave for All Workers Act came about in 2023 from Governor Pritzker, and this act provides the accumulation of time for employees at I believe 1 hour of paid leave earned for every 40 hours worked. This is in no way something that the district disagrees with in any way. In fact, we are very competitive in our paid time allotment. And it's one of the things that I think actually sets us apart for, if not all, most employee groups here. What has changed, however, is Cook County has now adopted this and is not exempt organizations like park districts and school districts who have different categories of staff who work only potentially certain portions of the year or already have more than even the paid time that the law would require. So we have been exempt from the ordinance as of Monday night from the village of Skokie because there is an element of local village control on this. Us along with the other Skokie school districts as well as the Skokie Park District. Part of their exemption of this for us is that we basically approve that they exempted us from this. Allows us to maintain local control, allows us to continue to utilize collective bargaining to make sure that our employees are heard, that they're compensated appropriately, and allows us to really set ourselves apart, which I think we already do in our paid leave allotments. So maintains local control, I think, is the main theme there, and is occurring for each of the different school districts in the village of Skokie.
Any questions?
Vonnegut,
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Disturbance,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw,
Yes.
Waltrip. Yes. Hyatt.
Thank you. Finally, there was one request and a response for information under the Freedom of Information Act during the period November 15th through December 13th, 2024. Page 4, sorry. On December 5th, the district received a commercial request from Bo Kim from unionbids.com requesting bid results / tabulation or award for Highland Elementary School renovations. Our response is pending. Thus ends our public session. We will take a 2-minute break before reconvening in closed session.